All right, so I'm going to throw a hot topic out there.
All right.
And I got corrected the other day when I used the word relapse. And someone told me that I shouldn't say that. It should be reoccurrence. And it just made my blood boil. That does not sit well with me. And I feel like it's just some person who maybe never struggled with substance use disorder or addiction that just has a degree and a fancy title, and they're saying it's not appropriate to say relapse anymore. Because initially what I feel is, I feel like failure is kind of attached to relapse. The word relapse, like that means you failed. And when you say reoccurrence, you're taking that harsh word away from it and making it a little more like, oh, well, it's okay. It's just a reoccurrence. And like that can happen again. But failure's such a good thing in my eyes.
I think that you can move the goalpost when it comes to like the words that we use because they have a negative stigma attached to them. I think that's a lot of the time when they do a focus group and they say, okay, relapse. People really don't like that word. It's stigmatizing. It makes people feel bad about themselves. We're gonna come up with a new word, a reoccurrence, and I think that both really mean the same thing. And at the end of the day, the behavior is what brings the stigma. And so that is gonna follow that word from relapse to reoccurrence. And then in 5-10 years, we're gonna need to change reoccurrence into something else because reoccurrence will have the same stigma attached to it because when I go back to using drugs or drinking, that's the stigma. It's not the word, it's my behavior and what I did and how others feel about it and things like that. So I think supporting people through relapse is more important than changing the word. Because the stigma is when I feel like I'm alone and that everyone's turned their back on me because I've relapsed, not because of the word itself.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a cop-out at the end of the day. And maybe I'm wrong in this, but in my personal journey, like even when I would have thoughts of cravings or especially earlier on in my recovery journey, I would view it as like, that's failure and you're being weak right now. Like that would be failure if you went toward that. And I just think as time has gone on, we have tried harder and harder to protect like our kids, the culture in general from failing. And it's doing nothing but hurting them moving forward. I feel like you have to have failure in order to grow and become better at things.
Yeah.
Recovery is one of those things.
Yeah. And when I see a guy stay sober for a year and then relapse, to me, that's 5 steps forward and a half step back, not 5 steps back. Especially if it's caught early, they do something about it, they get right back on the horse. That person normally coming back into recovery after that relapse is already ahead of where they started the first time. And so there's some failure to it, but it's important. I think you learn a lot from failure. I think you learn a lot from relapse because I would have these patterns that would be set in every time I relapsed. And sometimes it would take someone from the outside pointing, looking at it and saying, hey, these are the things that happen every single time before you relapse. So let's not do those things this time and maybe we get a different result. And wouldn't you know that normally, that does help and that does work. Doesn't make me immune from relapse, but the more that I can look and dig into those relapses to see how and why they happened, the better I can avoid them in the future.
Yeah, I think where I just take a harder stance, and again, maybe I'm the one that's wrong in this thinking, but it's like you relapsed and it's not okay. It's kind of where my head goes, not you relapsed and it's okay. Like it was just a reoccurrence. Like we'll get it all figured out, but it's all okay. It's like, no, it's not okay. You're like headed to drastically destroy your life again. Yeah. It's not okay. You need to change right now. This is a huge failure. And that's like the coddling around that is where I have like this harder line in the sand, I think.
Yeah, and that gets into something that's interesting too, where you hear people say relapse is part of recovery, and it's like, relapse is part of addiction. Relapse is part of substance use disorder. Reoccurrence is part of substance use disorder. Whatever words you want to use, it is part of addiction. Recovery is recovery. Now there's like an interesting thing where you go from addiction into recovery, that in this middle ground, maybe relapse happens, whatever, on your way to recovery. but it is not part of recovery. Recovery is not using drugs and drinking,
Yeah.
not using mood and mind altering substances, and changing your life to where you don't need that anymore, so you don't stumble back into it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting as kind of a, I think it softens the blow to say, hey, relapse is normal, it's part of recovery. It can be normal, but relapse isn't a part of a lot of people's story. And then some people, it's a really dominant part of it. For like 10, 15 years, I get 6 months, I relapse, 9 months, relapse, 2 years, relapse. But I would just say that that's not ideal. You know, if that's happening and you're that chronic relapser, you know, for 10 years, to me, there's something happening there that needs to be dug into a little more of why you're repeating the same thing again and again.
Yeah.
Because to me, something's not changing. And when they say, you know, the same person will drink or use again, I think we have to change. And if we don't, we drink and use again.
Yeah. Yeah, we made a post like a week or 2 weeks ago. It was just like a video playing and then words over the video that said, if you chased your recovery the same way you chased your high, you would never relapse again. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Like, we can make all the excuses that we want of, oh, like my girlfriend broke up with me and I was really struggling and that's why I decided to drink again. Like, whatever, bro. If you chased staying clean the same way you chased your high on your hardest days, you never relapse.
Yeah, and no one will.
Yeah.
That's the reality. I didn't, I don't think you did, you know, but normally my point is like, if you have 25% of the same tenacity and drive towards recovery as you did toward drugs and alcohol, you're gonna be great.
Yeah.
You're gonna do just fine.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, and I always tell this story, that like, I found a beach cruiser in the trash. I rode it 1.5 miles with flat tires in the rain after scrounging for change for 2 hours so I could buy 2 bottles of champagne because I could choke them on the handlebars and drive home, drank it, and felt just as empty as before all that started. So like, that's what I'm willing to do to get champagne on a rainy day that I just needed something.
Yeah.
And you know, alcohol wasn't even like my main thing, but I just needed something.
Yeah.
And then I'll have somebody pull up to my house and be like, hey, I'll take you to a meeting. You want to just walk outside and get in my car? I'll take you there. I'll talk to you on the way. I'm going with you so you don't have to go by yourself. I'll drop you back off and I'll hide in the house in fear and make excuses and not go.
Yeah.
And that's like exactly that asymmetry of what I'll do for alcohol and drugs and what I'll do to get sober. And those just, they have to become somewhat more even.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the same as like addiction relapse and reoccurrence is this new age of like addiction treatment versus now everyone's wanting to say substance use disorder. Don't say addiction because that's a really negative word. We need to use substance use disorder. And I've been corrected in that too. And it's like, again, probably by someone who just had a fancy degree with letters behind their name but never really struggled. And it's like, don't tell me how to identify. Don't tell me that I can't say I'm an addict and that I've been addicted to substances and now I need to say that I'm just someone who struggled with substance use disorder. It just, I don't know, something about that rubs me.
Well, and it's interesting too when you talk to the average person, not someone who works in treatment or whatever, you say substance, I tried. You know, and I'd be at a wedding or whatever, and someone would ask, hey, what do you do? You know, what do you struggle with? You get into conversation. Oh, I work in substance use disorder. What's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, addiction. And they go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not negative. Again, the negative part is when I'm in it, the behavior surrounding it. The lying, the dishonesty, manipulation, sometimes stealing, you know, just not treating people well, not respecting people, all while like sabotaging myself and my life to the dismay of, you know, the loved ones around me. That is what's negative about it. Whether I use the word addiction or substance use disorder, that behavior is what's stigmatizing to me. And so it doesn't really matter. And for the average person, they just don't know what I'm talking about. Same thing with, we switched it with like sober living. You know, became recovery residence. And when I tell someone, oh yeah, I run a recovery residence, they say, what's that? And you're like a sober living. And even sometimes that's like, what's that? And finally you get to like halfway house. And that's what most people know of like, oh, okay. And then even still they're like, so people coming out of prison? And it's like, no. It's like, you just like have to explain it to people. So I want to use the easiest language that the most people understand. And it's never gonna not offend somebody, you know, with what you're saying. So I would just rather speak in the most plain way that the most people understand what I'm talking about and go
just call it like it is.
and go from there and say what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And again, when I say the word addiction, meaning that I was in addiction, there's almost no stigma because now I'm not in addiction and I'm in recovery. And people really love that, you know, like everybody knows somebody who's addicted, had a family member, like something around their life. And maybe that person got sober and they have that's why they love recovery, you know, for other people. Maybe they never got sober and they need people to see that like, okay, you can change, you can get better.
Yeah.
But in that context, I've just never had it be a negative thing.
Yeah, like you said, or kind of touched on, but when you're speaking to other people who are in recovery, like they don't care. They don't give a shit what you call it. Like most people who have lived it, who are in it, and I've even been talking with families who are new to it, or they're experiencing it for the first time with a child, and I'm like on the phone with them, kind of cutting jokes about it, and they are not having it. They're like, why aren't you taking this seriously? And it's like, no, you don't. Like, I'm in recovery too. Hey, and it's just kind of what we do. We have to make light of this because it was something that was very difficult in our lives. It probably destroyed a lot of relationships. There were a lot of negative things that followed my addiction. And all I can do today is kind of like make sure I'm constantly trying to do better and make right choices and not go back to that lifestyle, but also laugh about it. Like I'm lucky enough to have made it out of the other side, and now I'm gonna make light of that situation and kind of show families like, hey, there is hope and there is happiness here on the other side of it. But some are not ready to experience that right off the jump.
No, and they say, you know, what's the difference between tragedy and comedy? And the answer is time, you know? And so I think the longer time you have away from it personally, the easier it is to joke about it and kind of see the funniness or the absurdity or whatever about it, because now you're on the other side.
Yeah.
But I remember even like for the first year, 2 years, like I'd make jokes to my mom about it and like she wasn't ready to joke about it.
Yeah.
She's like, no, that was a really rough time. And like, fair enough, you know? Like, and so I stopped joking with her about it. But I remember even last night I was talking to my dad and I made a joke about, you know, buying drugs or something like that. And, you know, he can laugh today about it.
Yeah.
But maybe 1 year after and definitely in it, like it was no laughing matter.
For sure.
And so I think, I do get what you're saying though, that I think it's important for people to see that further down the road, this is how you talk about it. You know, it's not this deep, dark, tragic thing. When you get to the other side, you can look back and laugh and say, God, that was crazy. I'm so grateful for where we are today. And I'd way rather laugh about it than cry about it today.